Well, hello, everybody. I am honored to have one of our great speakers here with us today is Vivica Menegaz. Did I say it right? Again, hopefully.
It was better the first time, Menegaz.
Menegaz, okay. She's a certified whole foods nutritionist. She's a blogger. She's a published author. She's one of the leading voices on a food-based approach to natural healing or to healing. And she is the one person that literally does endocrine rebalancing with a ketogenic diet. So looking at things like your thyroid, your adrenals, rebalancing the stress hormones, she is the one person that is looking at that through therapeutic ketogenic nutrition. So she's the founder of the Healing Foods Method, which is a 14-week program where she works with clients one-on-one to turn their health around using therapeutic ketogenic nutrition or that diet. You would probably know her through her blog of The Nourished Caveman. So I am so honored to introduce to you Vivica, because we're going to be speaking today about doing keto right for you. So as we spoke recently, keto is this huge buzzword recently, but it's nothing new to people like you nor I. So why do you think keto is so popular now?
Well, because it's very much needed. And, if you look at our contemporary society at large in America, at least the health profiles of our society at large, we see a lot of metabolic damage, which means weight gain, obesity, and, what we call syndrome X, all the different facets of this metabolic syndrome that come with like weight gain and malfunctioning pancreas, insulin resistance, and then eventually goes into neuropathies, cardiovascular disease, of course, diabetes. It's a big one, diabetes too. So these are all facets of damaged metabolism and metabolic issues that then kind of spill over like, just a giant oil spill, and it spills over into endocrine issues, which is my little field of expertise. But, I started out with metabolic, and that's where, at the beginning of my career and my studies, it was more like focusing on the metabolic part. So I worked more with diabetic patients and diabetics too, mostly, and people that dealt with syndrome X. But then because of that spillage, I focus more on endocrine as well. So back to your question, as a ketogenic diet, the ketogenic lifestyle is one of the best ways to fix broken metabolism, what I call it, just, quickly into words, So people are discovering that there are huge benefits in this kind of eating. And there is a big difference between just doing low carb, which has been around for a long time, and instead going into full ketogenic, which has, a whole different metabolic pathways of ketosis. So utilizing the benefits of ketosis really harnesses the power of this way of eating versus just doing low carb. For me, that is the main reason. But I also feel that keto is becoming so popular because people are thinking about another quick fix, another way to drop the weight fast. And that's what you see a lot advertised on the internet these days. It's like, lose weight fast and, eat all the fat you want and just get ripped. And, it's for people who work out, for professional, like weightlifters, anywhere from people that are into fitness or extreme fitness, especially guys that want to be really like lean and muscular. But the spectrum of keto is a really wide spectrum with multiple benefits. But that's another reason I think why it is popular, is because it does have this really wide spectrum of applications.
Definitely. And it's going back to like our innate way that we were meant to eat, right? And I know you're going to cover that a little bit too, but do you think there's one cookie cutter model, or is it different for every person?
For me, there is never a cookie cutter model. We are humans. Like, if we all looked the same and we're like same height, same size, same weight, same, facial features, but we are extremely varied as humans. Our DNA, even though as a basic structure, has like billions of variations, of genetic components. So imagine like how to try to fit everybody into one paradigm is just not a healthy mentality. And the beauty of the ketogenic diet is it is more of a lifestyle than just a diet, for sure. And it has different ways to apply it. So there is definitely not one way to do it, but we can find the right way to do it for a variety of people and a variety of situations.
What are some different guidelines that you would say specifically for women? Because I know, like even just personally watching things coming about over the last few years online, everybody was touting certain things, but it was a lot of the males that were out there touting things. And you and I both know women function differently than men. So what, give me a little bit of some of those little details.
So for example, there is also women, we can't really generalize women because women go through different phases in their lives. And, as we know, we are really closely functioning with the functioning of our hormones, sex hormones, thyroid hormones, and adrenal hormones, especially, plus insulin all the time. So as our hormones fluctuate through life, we also get into different phases of our life. So the reproductive phase is very different than the perimenopausal phase, which is very different than the postmenopausal phase. And our hormones have different needs that need to be supported by our lifestyle and diet. Because if we are going against what our body needs a certain moment, for example, you are in the reproductive phase and you need to have a proper hormone balance in order to be able to have normal periods, in order to not go into dysfunctional patterns like PCOS or fibroids. I see a lot of that, a lot of that. But, how does that ketogenic diet look like for that, cycling woman? So just in general, I want to say that for women, I feel like at all ages, all stages, there is a balance between the nutrition and the nutrients that we need to get into our bodies, especially essential fatty acids, omega-3s, and all the good oils that we need to create hormones, and the really good fats that we need to create the sex hormones so we can have enough progesterone and estrogen in our daily lives and have normal periods, do not become estrogen dominant. So that is something that's really important to consider, but also on the other side, there is the carbohydrates and the role they play and the nutrients that come through the carbohydrates. So, in a lot of communities that do keto, I've seen a lot of really indiscriminate and poorly thought out advice as far as introducing carbohydrates into your cyclical ketogenic diets in the form of like donuts. And I've heard a couple guys interviewed on the, no names for the interviewee, but the interviewer was David Asprey, and he was interviewing a keto guy that was doing it for fitness. And he was like saying that, yes, he does his carb ups with bear claws, or like, what are the cherry turnovers? People will probably know what I'm talking about by then. But anyways, for me, that is really poor advice, because, we cannot just pretend and demand to be healthy, like a really strong base of health for long term, not just for now, 10 years, 5 years, but 40, 50, 60 years of solid health based on cherry turnovers. Not going to happen. Sorry, guys, to break the news. So, introducing those carbs, that other important element that is, in a lot of communities, again, for ketogenic, it's considered the bad guys. The carbs are the bad guys. Well, there are carbs that are the good guys and are the ones that feed our gut, they feed our fiber, they feed our nutrients. So they don't come as cherry turnovers, and even not as fruit, but they come as a variety of vegetables and some starchy vegetables as well. Now, there is a big famous doctor out there too that, has some good things to say about keto. Is becoming one of the really guys out there that is doing a lot of marketing on, and videos everywhere and programs everywhere. But some of his ideas are good as far as yes, you can eat as many greens as you want. And again, I don't think that's necessarily true, but eating a lot of greens and a lot of veggies is good, especially for women, as part of the carb balance. But there is also something else that I'm going to talk just real quick about the other side of what's not good for women specifically. And that are things like intermittent fasting that stresses your adrenals even further. Because for women, adrenal hormone stress balance is really important. And I feel like that is very much of a man's opinion that has not experienced, the full effects of adrenal fatigue. And I don't know about his patients or his wife, but I see it in my patients a lot. And, promoting intermittent fasting for people with adrenal fatigue, even if it's gradually introduced, it's still intermittent fasting. So in the end, it's like, you're pushing an agenda as a silver bullet or, a magic wand for everything, which I feel is really not a good advice. Again, it might be
every person is different. Like you said, every person is different, and our hormones are different. And so we do have to look and take those things into consideration too.
Right.
So
you're a practitioner. So I'm sure that in your clinical experience, you see how it is different from case to case, right?
Absolutely. And you brought up something, and I want you to expand on this too, because a lot of times I think some of the people that might be tuning in, they understand keto, and there is, a connotation out there that you can load up on crazy amounts of fat and a lot of protein, and they think back to like Atkins Day, right? And they think of all of that, and a lot of dairy. And you and I both are ones that we very much limit our dairy because of certain things. So I want you to share why. Like, I know why I do it, and I'm sure it's the same reasons as you, but I want you to really share why it's so important, especially as women. And when you're grabbing a lot of dairy products that aren't organic dairy products, there's a lot of excess stuff in there. So I want you to talk a little bit about that.
So for me, there are, 3 reasons why I don't recommend dairy, and I don't use dairy myself unless in very limited quantity, and usually is goat, not cow. But one is, again, hormonal balance first and foremost. The second one is toxicity, and the third one is ethical. So I will expand in that. And like, disclaimer here, I am a meat eater, and I recommend, meat animal products, not dairy, but meat. But I also am, very strictly recommended sustainable, grass-fed, grass-finished, non-cruelty raised, pastured meat products for all animals, So this is very different than the dairy industry. Although because of the other 2 reasons, so ethical is not enough of a reason for me to just say don't have dairy. There are the other 2 reasons, and I want to touch on them quickly. So the first one is hormonal. Dairy interferes with women's hormonal balance. Cow dairy does. And maybe you being a doctor and a chiropractor, you have more on the research, and like the, biological reasons. For me, it's mostly clinical practice, but I see that the hormones that are naturally contained in milk and cheese are designed to raise a baby cow, not to feed an adult human, So even if there are no hormones added and the milk is like pastured, raw, non-cruelty, and just beautiful, amazing milk, it might be okay for your children to have it and, have some of that in their diets. But for an adult woman, no, it just does not work. And so then there are, like, of course, the individual sensitivities that are developed that a lot of times they're not, don't always come out. Some people say they have no symptoms, and they think they're not sensitive, but then you have all these other subtle things going on. And once you eliminate dairy, really, you see the difference. And then the other factor is toxicity. And of course, when you do conventional dairy, good luck. Because, the antibiotics, the pesticides in the grain, there is bioaccumulation where, like, the animal just has to have that much that much grass, let's say, or grain, worst and unfortunate grain, that is being sprayed and processed, or, really awful things they feed those poor cows. So that accumulates in the milk and in the tissues. So, and plus, the anti-inflammatories or whatever other medication they put those poor animals on because of the pus content of the milk, because they are in really poor conditions. So there is toxicity. Oh, and last one, important, stress hormones of the animal that go into the milk. So don't forget those, because people don't always think about that.
Yeah, I don't think people ever think of that one. So it's interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is absolutely true. So give me some do's and don'ts just of keto for general health and wellness. And I love how you said it's not necessarily a diet. That's the one thing I always try to teach my patients. It's actually a lifestyle. It's not something, hey, I'm just going to do this for 6 weeks and go back to my, bad eating habits or whatever. Like, it's literally choosing to make better decisions every day for the rest of your life. And it's livable, and it's fun to live life that way, because everyone always thinks like you're so deprived, and you're actually not. Because you can take a look at her blog and see some of her pictures and all of her recipes and that type of stuff too, because this is a foodie. This is somebody with Italian heritage who has, all sorts of stuff. And that's how her blog started. So
I've been called a foodie, like an insult, pretty much. Like, because, my book just came out, The Keto Paleo Kitchen. And I actually have one. Let me grab one. And show you. I just got some from the publisher. But
that's amazing. Oh, that looks awesome.
So, because I like good food, and this is like stuff that you can eat on keto, and you can see like it's not all about like bacon, and that was bacon actually, it's not all about bacon and butter and eggs. Like, I do a lot of things that is more Mediterranean. I love fish, but so I got called a foodie. It's like, your book is too gourmet for us. Like,
but we all
that's what you can do with keto, though. You can be gourmet, and you can have a high variety of foods. So to do's and don'ts, like, I would say, yes, probably one of the main things is don't get stuck in bacon and butter, because those are not very nutrient dense foods. And yes, you will be happy eating bacon and butter for a minute, but first you're going to get tired of it, and then start craving more like things that have actual nutrients, like greens. And then you're going to end up like binging on some bad carbs, because your body is craving nutrition. And then, also like being so narrowly focused, even on something tasty, eventually will cause imbalances and will give you the tendency to go into that binging behavior. So widen the scope, and like using nutrient dense foods. That's number one do. So don't do McDonald's keto. Don't do packaged food keto. Don't do like everything out of a box keto. Think nutrients, think health. So the base, that's why I call my diet Keto Paleo. There is more to it, but it's a kind of a quick summary of like, you want to use whole, real foods. And then you want to add the keto component to that. So keto just means macronutrients. So do eat good foods, and don't limit yourself too much. So the other don't is like, don't think that you have to, as a woman, don't think you have to be under 20 grams of carbs for the rest of your life. That is very unhealthy. Everybody, first of all, has a different carb tolerance. So it's really important to kind of assess where you are with carb tolerance. Where can you be in ketosis, without having to be so low carb. For some people, it's 50, 60 grams of carbs a day. So why do you want to be lower when you can tolerate that much and still be in ketosis and still keto adapt? There might be a very, very initial moment where you need to be more low carb, but then usually it expands. So another big don't for me is like, don't do mainstream keto necessarily. Try to, if you need to follow somebody, try to find somebody who's like closer to who you are. So if you are a 20-year-old male, find a 20-year-old male that knows what he's talking about keto and is being successful for his journey. And if you are a 70-year-old or a 60-year-old lady, don't look at a 20-year-old male, because that's not going to work. It's a whole different universe, hormonally, physiologically, like mentally as well. You're not going to go do the same workouts.
Right.
So try to stick to as individualized as possible. What else? Yeah.
How do you have your clients test for their ketone levels? Do you have everybody using blood? Do you use a breath meter? How do you do that? Just out of curiosity.
There is kind of a progression for me. We start out with the strips because they're cheap and they're good and they work. Once you're keto adapted, the strips really don't work anymore. So they kind of go to like trace and stay there. Then there are different options, and depending on the person and on their lifestyle, we either go blood measuring or we go ketonics breath measuring. So it really depends on the person.
All right. I was just curious with that, because I know we have a lot of, with our audience, it's beginners and we have more advanced people within keto. So just for some people that are just beginning on where they can start out with.
I would say start with the strips. Urine strips, they're cheap and they're effective for, the first month at least, for sure. You can use them. Once you see the strips start going flat, nothing, that means you're keto adapted. Then you have to switch to a different way of testing.
Yep. Wonderful. Any other tidbits of information? You've got so much information. I appreciate you being here.
Of course. It's my pleasure. Let me see. What's important for me, I think it's to know that a ketogenic diet can be a therapeutic diet. And so ketogenic diet and this kind of lifestyle, I'm a nutritionist, first of all. So I'm not just somebody who does macros or like a dietitian, I'm a holistic practitioner and I look at health before diet. So I would say don't expect keto again to be the magic bullet, because when you do keto and it doesn't work, and I guess we should bring that point up, because a lot of people come to me and they're like, I've done keto and it didn't work. I done keto and gained weight. I done keto and I couldn't digest. I've done keto and I had horrible symptoms. I've done keto and my hair fell out. I've done keto and I couldn't sleep, after 2 months. And, I had energy and then suddenly all my energy went away and I went crazy. So those are all, for me, big signals, red flags that tell me that you have completely ignored your underlying health situation and what's going on. And your weight is just the tip of the iceberg. And, I understand that not everybody wants to take care of their health in the same way. Some people prefer to just take a pill and not think about it. Some people want to be committed to resolve issues. So, but regardless of which approach you choose, the pill approach or the real healing approach, still, keto is not going to resolve everything that's going on. It's going to help with a lot of stuff. It's going to help with a lot of conditions. It's going to help you get cleaner and clean up your lifestyle. But still, when you have major underlying health conditions like thyroid imbalances, like toxicity, heavy metal toxicity, that is one of the number one reasons of hormonal imbalance, by the way. It's toxicity. So you can be toxic with metals or toxic with hormones themselves. So all those examples are just like to say that you need to have a real look at what's going on underneath. Then you will know why you're not able to be successful with a ketogenic diet.
Perfect. So where can they find your book at? Obviously on your web page, but where else?
Book is on Amazon. And yes, I do have a link if they are on my blog, The Nourished Caveman. There is a page for the book, and then there is a link straight to Amazon, but it's also on Barnes and Nobles, and I forgot, there is like 5 different outlets that they can buy it on. So it's and it's a Whole Foods, you guys. The book is a Whole Foods. Yeah,
that's great. That's really so exciting. That's a huge accomplishment.
I'm sorry.
That's a huge accomplishment. Congrats. That's exciting.
Little one, but those little things that make you happy.
Yeah, for sure. Writing a book is one of those things that continues to be on my list, and it hasn't even happened yet. So you're way ahead of me.
It's a lot of work.
All right. Well, if they want to find out more information, they can find you at thenourishedcaveman.com, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate all of it. Lots of great information.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.